So per usual, we're going to do the trickle in minute, but I'll just note at the outset that today my colleague and collaborator Matt Gluth will be redlining. So you'll be seeing his pen on the screen today. And he will also be taking roll call. And Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Matt G or Matt W?
Great point, Aaron. Matt Gluth.
All right, well, I'm gonna,
And
give it
Matt,
another.
when you're done, why don't we just go right to Aaron and skip me?
Okay.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, Matt Gluth, can you lead the roll call?
I sure can. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
We
Okay.
can.
I thought I'd been speaking before, but perhaps not. All right, I see Aaron is here. Nadine?
Yes, hi.
Oh yes, please say here or yes or something so that we know that your microphones are working when you respond. Kent Barnett? Okay, Warren Belmar?
Here.
John Cooney? Annika Cooper?
Here.
Kai Feldblum?
Here.
Bill Funk? Oh, he's going to be an hour late, so we'll catch him later. Robert Gerard?
Here.
Susan Grunman?
That's me.
Renee Landers? Tristan Levitt?
Here.
Robert Lesnick?
Here.
David Pang as alternate for Patrick Nagel?
Here.
Ann O'Connell? Nina Olson?
Here.
Jesse Panuccio? Roxanne Rothschild? Kate Shaw? Jim Tozy?
Yeah.
Christopher Walker?
Here.
And Russell Wheeler.
Russell, your mic's not working again.
Okay, that was all of our committee members who RSVP'd that they would be here. Did I miss anybody?
I am here too.
I am as well.
One for now, University of Chicago.
I'm sorry, could you all do that one at a time with your name so that I can take it down quickly? Jennifer, no. Okay, who else did I miss? Ann
Chris.
O'Connell here.
And Chris McNeil.
Thank you. I'm here.
Hey, I'm Richard West. I'm an ALJ member of the community, also sitting in.
Also, Kate Shaw, I'm on the committee, joined a little late.
Oh, great. Welcome, Kate. And our consultants, Dan Ho, who is a member of the committee, but is appearing only as a consultant for this project.
I'm here.
And David Marcus.
I'm here.
And Gerald Ray.
Also here.
Great. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Aaron. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Matt. So this is the third and final meeting of the committee, and it is the final meeting of the committee. We are not going to go to a fourth meeting. I appreciate everybody's help so far. I appreciate the comments that we have received. It has been really helpful to get them in advance so we can kind of work them in. So the goal today is to finish up the list of recommendations, then go through the comments we've received and what we've already covered, and then do the preamble. Let me set some of the ground rules. These will be the same ground rules that we've done for the first two meetings. First, this time though, Matt rather than Danny will be running the computer through the process. Note that only ACUS members, whether or not on the committee, and their designated alternates may have full speaking privileges. Anyone else who wants to speak can only do so upon the unanimous consent of the committee. To avoid background noise, please keep your microphone on mute, and then use the hand raise feature or add a comment in the chat feature to say you'd like to speak. Then we'll call on you and you can unmute yourself. Our general rule is we like to have people have their cameras on. I am not super strict about that because I recognize that life is complicated and sometimes we have worry about, you know, our bandwidth or what's happening at our house, whatever. So to the extent that you can, please have your camera on. It's easier for us to communicate, but that's not going to be strictly enforced. If you're not an ACUS member or an alternate and you want to speak, it's going to require unanimous consent. To the extent, I mean, generally these are pretty easygoing conversations, so usually that'll happen. As we get closer to the deadline, maybe I'll be a little bit more strict about that, but we'll see how that goes. Only use the chat function if you have something that you want to say out loud to the group. Don't use the chat function for substantive comments. It's hard enough to run a meeting virtually when we're trying to hear each other. It's much harder if we have two meetings going on at once, one in with our ears and the other in the chat function. And then once we get to the time to take a vote, I'll go through the procedures there. But right now I'll just set those aside. And I think those are our rules. So with that, let's go, Matt G, can you please bring up the recommendation and do the ones that we haven't done yet? I cannot hear you, Matt.
I'm sorry, 1 second while I bring it up.
Sure.
Aaron, maybe we can go through the order of what we plan to do.
Sure. So the order that we want to do here is, if you recall, the last suite of recommendations we did not get to in our second meeting. So we're going to do that first. That's the things we've not seen before. We're going to finish that up. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go through all of the recommendations we've already seen before and do the comments that have been added since then. People have filed some in advance and we're gonna go through those. Then I'll give people a chance if there's anything else about the actual recommendations that folks want to chime in on, you know, that'll be your chance to say something. If we've missed a thought along the way, then we'll finish up with the preamble and then we will take a vote. So Matt, are you ready to drive?
Matt, I think you're still on mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's going to be 1 more second. I apologize.
Oh, no worries, no worries. I guess while we are waiting for that, I will give the announcement about the plenary. Hopefully everybody has received the email, but our plenary is going to be December 16th. They'll send the information. It's going to be on Zoom again. We'll get the information how to log in, but I hope everybody can attend that. That'll be our project, but the other project as well, especially for those of you who are new to ACUS. It's a lot of fun. To hear from all the other committees and to see what everyone else has been up to. So that's December 16th. Put that in your calendar. Reeve, are we do you know what time we're starting?
I think it'll be around 9:30 in the morning. We'll send out an email with the exact times, but I think we're currently looking at around 9:30 to 5.
Okay.
And also for new members, just keep in mind that the inclusion of this and any other recommendation is dependent upon the council's consent, which has not been given yet, but that's my job.
All right, perfect. Okay, so I see now the recommendations, and what is the suite? We moved them in the order, but we haven't looked at them. So where does that kick in? Matt Gluth, where are they now?
They're under, I believe, 23 and 24.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's look at it. I'll give everybody a chance to read 23 and 24. So take 45 seconds, a minute, read it, and then we will go through our discussion. Okay, and with that, who would like the floor? It looks like we have a pre-submitted comment. I can't see who sent that.
That comment was from Russell Wheeler. Do you need me to make the screen larger?
If you could, that would be helpful, just so I could see who submitted them. I don't know if that's going to work or not. It's on the comment side that I can't see where they, so it says author for the committee consideration, this, and then I don't see the arrow of who submitted it.
It's a comment. The first line of each one of these will say who submitted. This is a comment from public.
Okay,
member
I'm
Russell
with you.
Wheeler.
All right. Russell Wheeler, would you like to be heard? Okay, apparently not. Would anybody like to be heard on 23?
Why don't we, there's two comments, Matt Gluth, that say for committee consideration. Yeah, why don't we go in order? Yeah, the first one right there. That's just a note that these two paragraphs haven't been reviewed yet. And then the second one is on the standards for evaluating the quality of agency decisions and decision-making processes. And so this is something that we've added in at the recommendation of the committee and consultants as well. So that's the main difference from the last time we've reviewed these.
So my reaction as I'm looking at 23 is, do we need all sources of rules and related guidance documents? Wouldn't we just say on their websites, all rules and related guidance documents? The sources of seems like that's an acronym that we've moved beyond. Does anybody object to cleaning that up? Hearing none.
Aaron, are you proposing that it's, I mean, we always have this discussion, and I think one further cleanup thing we try to do is not to suggest that rules or that guidance documents are anything other than rules. So should it just say rules?
That's fair, and related guidance. What if we got rid of documents? Would that do the trick?
Reeve, what do we normally do here? I mean, sometimes we use the word legislative rules, even in the procedural context, if we deem them binding. I don't think you want to do that here, but somebody will object that rules includes guidance documents.
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I've dropped out for some reason. So, sorry, we're looking at the language on 23.
Yeah.
Someone's going to object, Reeve, at some point that, which has happened during the last several plenary sessions, that rules includes guidance documents. The guidance documents are a subspecies of rules.
Right,
And
exactly.
I just don't know if there's a standard usage here or a better, whether there's an alternative.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any standard usage. I mean, you could perhaps just.
Yeah, I think we could do rules with the parentheses, including explanatory materials. I think that would accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. So maybe we get rid of and related guidance because we're already with the parentheses saying what we mean.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah, good.
All right. I can't see the queue. Is there anybody in the queue, Danny or Matt?
I don't see anyone in the queue at the moment.
Okay. Here's your chance. But if no one objects to 23, we will look at 24. Okay, let's look at 24.
Yeah, and that's my comment.
Perfect. All right. Have the floor, please, Russell.
Well, let me just, because you can't see it on the, let me just read what I said. I said, is this a recommendation to release aggregate case filing disposition data? It's unclear how making that information would facilitate QA analysis. And the references to best practices in this area is ambiguous. I mean, what area? I mean, I'm not clear what the recommendation is, other than to say agencies should be transparent and release in unidentifiable form how they dispose of cases. But what are the best practices? I just don't know what this is a recommendation to do. And is this area, what is this area? Is this area quality assurance analysis, or is it one specific aspect of it? I suspect it is. That is to say, effective case management. It's not going to develop best practices in terms of application of relevant legal principles. It's really a question to the drafters. What is this? What's the goal here?
And I'm going to toss it over to the consultants. I'm not sure which one of you wants to take it. What do you think of Russell's question?
I'm happy to take a first crack at it, with a caveat here that we are not the drafters of the recommendations. We drafted the underlying report, so the language here was drafted by the very able penmanship of the ACUS staff here. But what we in the report were trying to get at in terms of sort of disclosure of data and case management systems is that has actually been a very beneficial thing, for instance, for the SSA, which publishes data on ALJ dispositions in particular offices, in particular issue areas. And similarly, BVA has published de-identified cases. PTO has made major public data releases available. And that has actually really helped other administrative law scholars or public interest organizations also understand the nature of particular quality issues at these agencies. I think a lot of what we were facing when beginning this research is how opaque these practices can be, and little insight into whether particular quality assurance practices have worked or not. And so this is really a recommendation to make that available. I hear the question about the phrasing here in particular about best practices in this area and whatnot, but it really is about a call for more disclosure of what can be disclosed from within the case management systems. Gerald and Dave, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Just very briefly, I think that that having data available to evaluate standards for evaluating quality of agency decisions is really helpful. If an agency discloses the standard that it's using for evaluating its decisions, but doesn't disclose data to enable some attempt to verify that the agency is in fact administering its standard as it suggests, or that the standard is really meaningfully assessing quality, then that initial the disclosure of the standard itself will be less efficacious.
I'm all for that. The more transparency, the better. It's just not clear to me whether or not it goes back to the phrase best practices in this area. Quality assurance involves application of the law, whole sorts of things which you're typically not going to get out of even the best case management data. I just think it needs to be refined so that we know what we're talking about. Because I don't know what the object is. I don't have alternative wording, but I just think best practices in this area is awfully ambiguous, because the kind of case management data you're talking about is not going to inform agency's behavior in every aspect that quality assurance assesses.
So here's an idea, and maybe this is, I'm missing something, but what if we ended the sentence after the parentheses, information removed, period? There's going to be a number of uses you could use for it that I think are apparent in context, but we're not identifying any particular one. We're saying that this goes to your initial point, Russell, agencies should be transparent about this thing. Agencies consider whether to disclose the data, and then
I would,
as appropriate.
that would help. I would end it after organizations, because I think the object is
Okay.
to encourage scholars and others to have, have reliable data on which to analyze agency performance.
But I guess my question is, are we concerned about independent? I also assume it might be helpful for ACUS or some other thing that, I guess, are we an independent organization?
Say,
So maybe enable continued
research by individuals outside the agency.
Yeah, what about that? By research by those outside of the agency. Does that do the trick for you, Russell?
Yeah.
Does anybody else want to be heard on this? Okay, hearing none, we'll go with that. Thank you so much, Russell. I appreciate it. Plus, the pre-submitted is really helpful. Okay, so we have now covered the entire suite of recommendations at least once. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back and look at the pre-submitted comments on what we've already covered, and we'll go through.
What about 25?
25 we've already done. We've moved 23 and 24 up above 20. Before it was after, now it's before.
Did we finally resolve what to do about public?
I don't think so. We're going to go through that now in the next step.
Okay.
So let's go back to one. We have the pre-submitted comments. We'll go through them, one by one, and we'll finish this up. All right.
Aaron, I think Kai wanted to say something.
Sure. I can't see the list. When you were running the show, the thing, I could see the list and names. I can't see that now. I don't know if it's me or if it's Matt. Let me see if I can bring it up somewhere, because I just can't see who wants to be in the queue. I can't. So, all right. Maybe I can if I do it participants.
Yes, that's how you do it. This is how
looking
you.
at it, but then I can't see faces.
Right.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to ask Danny if you can. I'm not going to try to do this. If you can just tell me. I'd rather see faces than names. All right. Yep. The floor is yours.
And you've answered my internet went out. I had to reboot, and I had some comments on like number 5 and 15, and now I see you all going back, right?
Yep, correct.
So I will raise my hand at the appropriate time. Thanks so much.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's look at what do we have one? It looks like we have one for 2 from Russell Wheeler. Doesn't already have make existing unnecessary. I think that's self-explanatory, but if you want the floor, Russell, I'll let you have it.
No, just if they have them, they're existing. That's all.
Yeah. So I'm inclined to say delete existing. I think that makes a lot of sense. Does anybody object to that?
You could also delete do.
That's true. All right. Any objections? All right. Hearing none. Let's move to the next pre-submitted comment or outstanding issue. Let's scroll down here. Okay, 4. Okay, this is from Jeff Lubbers, who is not on the line. Comment from special counsel Jeff Lubbers. I think the term predictive reviews is unclear in this context. It could mean assessing whether the decisions might be overturned on review, or it could mean intervening as suggested by paragraph 11.
I think also this language comes from Rob Gerard.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great. Rob Gerard, do you want to explain and respond?
Yes, I was actually drawing from the report where the report writers noted 2 separate goals of quality assurance. One being a predictive review of whether the cases are likely to survive on appeal. The other approach being a review of decisional reasoning to ensure that the adjudicators are following agency policy guidelines and are being fair and consistent. Because that was an important part of the report, I thought that there should be a paragraph in the recommendation that addresses both of those possible goals. As far as Jeff's comment about whether predictive review is an ambiguous term, Yeah, that's a good question. I wonder if the report writers might have a better a vernacular phrase that might cover that concept.
And
Yeah,
Aaron also, Kai also has a comment.
Okay. Before I turn to the consultants, Kai?
Yeah, this was one of the ones that I had sort of stumbled over to see what it meant. I actually very much agree with the idea because these are two ways to do it. The way I had suggested a rewrite for myself was having predictive reviews come as a parentheses afterwards that explains what we mean. So agencies should consider both reviews that address decisions' likely outcomes before reviewing tribunals, parentheses, quotations, predictive reviews, and reviews of adjudicators' decisional reasoning, which address policy compliance, quote unquote, retrospective reviews. I have no idea if those are terms of art or not, but at least it captures the point and makes it, I think, a little more clear.
All right, can you say that one more time for Matt?
Sure, I was changed going to my,
slower.
yeah, so I know, I was reading from something I'd written. So agencies should consider both, take out the word predict. No, you don't need to write it again. Go so people can see. Just take out the word predictive instead of in front of reviews. Should consider both reviews and make that address, reviews that address, take out two. Oh, I'm sorry, you don't even have to add that. Just add that, just take out address. Okay. So reviews that address decisions likely outcomes before reviewing tribunals, parentheses, and then like in quotations, periodic reviews. I'm sorry, predictive reviews. Okay, so now we're defining that this is what we mean. And reviews of adjudicators' decisional reasoning, which address policy compliance. And now let's give it a term, parentheses. I don't know, I just made up retrospective reviews. I have to say the sentence is not completely clear, but I think it gets the point across well enough as long as we sort of make some changes along these lines.
Yeah, so I'm going to throw this to our consultants. I'm a little bit wary of retrospective review because that's such a term that we use all the time in this space. But I like what you're saying. I understand what you're getting at, but maybe we're safe. So
and maybe we don't need retrospective review,
Yeah.
Yeah, before throwing this to the consultants, I actually like this formulation of putting predictive reviews into the parenthetical. I also have a problem with retrospective reviews, especially because it's a term of art in the rulemaking context. But I think that maybe to have some parallel with the use of the parenthetical and reviews of adjudicators' decisional reasoning, parentheses, to address policy compliance, consistency, and fairness, end parentheses.
Okay, did you catch that, Matt?
I'm sorry, I apologize, I did not. So instead of retrospective reviews, you would like fairness in?
Yes, so after review of adjudicators' decisional reasoning, do another parentheses to it, and then I don't know what the transition is, but that
I think two
would be in. What is that, Robert?
To address.
Address. So that way we have symmetry in the recommendation, and we don't use a loaded term.
And this is high. I like that a lot because that actually fixes some of the stuff before in the sentence. You know what I mean? It's reviews of adjudicators' decisional reasoning, and then you're using that to address this range of things, policy compliance, consistency, fairness, which you may not have seen all of that before.
All right, so speaking as a committee member, this makes sense to me. I want to ask our consultants first, if any of them, if we're missing something, if this is giving anybody heartburn, and then I'll throw it back to the full committee. So consultants, does this work for you? Or are we butchering some concept that we don't want to be messing up?
So I'll comment first, and then maybe Dave and Dan can comment. So I think you could actually just take out the term predictive reviews as well. You're describing the types of reviews. All of it is somewhat predictive. You're trying to figure out what's going to happen in the future by doing this quality assurance so you can change behavior. So I think you could just take out predictive reviews and leave it as currently constructed, and that would be fine. I'm not sure you need to have a term for reviews that, that are looking at the outcomes before reviewing tribunals. So that would be my only comment. But I think it's fine as is if you guys like it that way.
Robert, how do you feel about taking out predictive reviews? Robert Gerard?
Yeah, I'm just taking a look at the text here. I'm wondering if then the second parenthetical is going to cause confusion.
We would undo it as a parenthetical. I think we would take it back to just a thought.
I think that would work.
All right. Would anybody from the committee like to be heard on this?
This is Hi.
Hi.
I just want to
Sure.
say, since I was the one that said to do it, the only reason I was doing it was because that word was confusing. So I like this suggestion. I think that deals with the problem well.
Okay. Danny, is anyone else in the queue on this one?
I don't see anyone.
Okay. All right. It is, for now, we're still getting a chance to vote, but for now it is accepted. All right. So let's go to the next one. And maybe Matt, if you could clear the ones we've already done, so it doesn't look like we still have a ton of work left to do, that would be kind of helpful. So get rid of maybe both of the comment bubbles on this one. Well,
Sure.
I'll let you finish. You've got the hardest job in the meeting, so I'll give you your time here.
I appreciate everyone's patience. It's my first time manning the gun.
All right, so now we are at, it looks like number 6, that was previously 5. And we have another comment from Jeff Lubbers, who again is not here. I would avoid the term reviewing. In this context, I think you mean analyzing or examining. And I'll throw that back to the personally, I'm indifferent. I think that either one works, but I'll throw it to maybe the consultants first. Are we okay with reviewing, or should it be analyzing or examining?
I think that's a good point by Jeff, in part because the report throughout uses the term quality review. And so that is obviously the review of initial adjudicative decisions. And here we're talking instead about sort of the feedback that comes from the appellate body. So I think analyzing or examining seems like a good way to keep those analytically distinct.
Do you have a preference between analyzing or examining?
I do not.
Does anybody have a preference? I'm fine making the change. Like I said, I'm indifferent, and if you lean towards it, I think we should do that. I think probably examining or analyzing, because examining also kind of has its own terms with it. So how about we change reviewing to analyzing? And does anybody object to that? Okay, that one is accepted. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Jeff and Absentia. All right, Russell Wheeler, you are up. You have a point about, we're not sure who the actor is.
Modest point. I think that's who's going to help who. May help quality assurance personnel. It's just a stylistic point.
Okay.
In other words, help hangs out there. Not who.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm fine putting quality assurance personnel in, which I think is the word that we've used. Does anybody object to that? All right, hearing none, we'll accept that. Thank you, Russell. All right. Now we are on number 7. We have another assign seems unnecessary. Yeah, I agree. Assign does seem unnecessary there. Functions already, their functions already means they're assigned functions. So
Hi has a comment.
Oh, hi. Yes.
No worries. Can you just scroll back up to what we just did? Sorry, I wasn't there in time because it just said something like above goals. Yeah. Analyzing decisions may help quality assess with meeting the above goals. I just feel like is it the goals articulated in recommendation stuff? Usually above, you think about the recommendation right before it. And of course, that's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about those general goals that we articulated, and I'm not sure. Maybe
Yeah.
the goals of this recommendation, I mean.
The problem is if we say the goals of this recommendation is there's ambiguity because the recommendation is the entire document and also each individual document is specific.
I see, I
one.
see. So by just saying the above
yeah.
goals and the reader will understand. Okay, I'm fine. It's just was something that struck me as a.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Let's look at that. Do you trust us to leave that for committee on style?
I was about to say, and this is committee on style, because it
Okay,
really is
great.
about
Thank
clarity.
you.
So
Thank you.
beautiful.
So let's flag that. We'll go back and look at that and make sure that, because I agree, it is kind of strange, but that might sometimes the strange is as good as we're going to do. So we'll look at it on the committee of style. Thank you for that. Also, I think on 7 to go back to, yeah, Matt, flag that just to make sure that we see it, maybe highlight it in yellow or something. And then we'll figure that out. But I don't think we need to spend the committee's time on that. Perfect. All right. Does anybody object to deleting the word assigned in 7 as unnecessary? All right, hearing none, let's delete assigned. We don't need that there. Great. Okay, now we are in 8 and we have a comment from Jeff Lubbers. Instead of understand, how about are familiar with? Well, I guess, again, I'm speaking now for myself. I actually prefer understand to familiar with. There's many things I'm familiar with that I do not understand. I think understanding it goes beyond familiarity. But maybe I'm wrong. Does anybody want to defend? Jeff is not here. Does anybody want to defend his change? Okay, hearing none, we're gonna keep with understand.
Actually, I just quickly raised my hand.
Oh, sure.
I'm not sure I would change it, but I just want to say if I were channeling Jeff, what I would say is, I'm not sure that we can know whether they completely understand for exactly the reason you said. So if I'm an agency, look, I'm being told, make sure that they're familiar with all of these requirements and they have the expertise to do it. It's sort of precisely, I agree with you, Erin, it's precisely that understanding is beyond being familiar with. Like, what are we going to do? Give them a test? You know what I mean? So the truth is, I would still stick with understand, because to the extent that they can give them some sort of test, why not? But I just want to say, I think this may have been where Jeff was coming from. So that's all I wanted to do was to speak, but I have no need to change from the understand.
You are a very able advocate, and I'm sure Jeff appreciates your help. Does anybody want to change from understand to are familiar with or something else? All right, hearing none, we will stay with understand. All right, now we are on number 10, another comment from Russell Wheeler. Let me look at this.
What I'm saying is that they're trying to make a comparative point here, but I don't think it comes across. Personnel will perform on a temporary basis and also gain some experience. I would reword it as I indicated to say personnel who perform quality assurance functions on a permanent basis may add more experience and institutional knowledge over time than will personnel who perform on a temporary basis. The latter, however, may be more likely to contribute different experiences and perspectives.
Does anybody want to be heard? Does anybody want to be heard on this change, which I think is a helpful amendment? Does anybody, want to oppose the proposed change? All right, hearing none, I think that's helpful. Thank you, Russell. All right, let poor Matt drive a little bit here. All right, okay. All right, so we have, this is a substantive point on 11, again from Russell. Do we want to say points instead of point? And I think I'll throw this to our consultants. Is it, in your experience, a multiple points in the process type thing, or is it really kind of a singular point?
I think it could be multiple points. So I think it's a good suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Does anybody disagree? I'm assuming not, but I don't want to presume. All right, here now we'll accept that change. Thank you, Russell. All right, and then we have another one from Russell. It might be cleaner to replace that utilize this with should take care that predisposition does not.
Aaron, I would go to Tristan's comment first, just
Okay, sure.
because Tristan, this whole section is new, and then Russell's comment is a comment on top of that.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mhm.
I don't remember Tristan in the RSVP.
He's here.
Tristan is here? Oh, great. Tristan, would you like to have the floor?
Again, it's not any different than just what the comment says there. Just as we went back and forth, and this was 2 times ago, I think that I just proposed that language. I'm trying to remember what the nub of the disagreement was, but it's about all I have to offer.
All right. So I guess I can ask this, does the language on the screen reflect your views? Is that what you would like on the screen first? Because if you don't even like it, then that's helpful for us to know. Assuming it does, then we can say, is Russell's amendment to that helpful?
Yeah, I'm fine with what's on.
Okay. What do you think about Russell's amendment?
I don't have strong feelings on it. I'm fine with that too.
All right.
I thought it was just a little smoother, that's all.
Okay. Does anybody on the committee have thoughts on either Tristan's or original thought or Russell's amendment to the thought? Which I think both are helpful. All right, hearing none, we will accept. Okay, now we have a more substantive point here by Robert Gerard. Robert, will you please take the floor?
Sure. I just thought that there was not one paragraph in the recommendation that addressed the report's excellent differentiation in different types of quality review, including formal quality assessments and informal peer review on an individual basis, sampling and targeted case selection on a more systemic basis, and then case management systems that basically provide real-time quality assurance through automated adjudication support tools, such as, for example, decision templates, commonly asked question documents, that sort of thing. And since the report seemed to be leading toward the advantage of a layered approach, I thought that it would be a good idea to address that as part of the recommendation.
Consultants.
Erin, Hi has her hand up as well.
Okay, let me ask the consultants first to make sure that this is consistent with what they were trying to do in the report, that this is there, and then I'll let Hi have the floor. So consultants, does this cause you any heartburn? All right.
I think it's a nice addition. Sorry, I was
Sure.
referring to Dave and Gerald. I think it's a nice addition. I think it reflects the thrust of the report quite well. Dave and Gerald, do you have anything to add?
No, totally agree. I think it's a terrific suggestion.
Yeah, me too. I also agree.
All right, great. Hi.
So just so you understand why my hand was raised, I also agree it's fantastic. And then I thought, but 13 should then come in front of 12. And then I just saw that's exactly what Jeff said. So I clearly channel him in various ways. So jumping ahead, I think we should switch 12 and 13. I think that's pretty obvious why, but
yep. All right, does 12, I'm throwing it out to the committee, does anybody on the committee either object conceptually to 12 or any of the language in 12? Or what is now 13 in real time? All right, hearing none, does anybody oppose the switch, which I think is pretty natural if we do it this way? All right, hearing none, accepted. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Robert. I'll just pause while we're going to this. It's much more fun once you've already gone through the language one time. It's so much easier and faster. So this is great. Thanks, everybody. All right, Russell, does data need an adjective, almost by definition, routinely collected? I'm going to throw this to the consultants. I don't have a problem with routinely collected, but I also know that I know that I maybe don't know something here. So
my only point, Aaron, is that obviously they're using data. I mean, what else would they use? They're using facts, but I think you want to modify it with something. I think they were saying routinely collected. It could be something else.
I'm not sure which of our consultants would.
Well, I can comment on that, I think.
Sure.
So typically the only data you're going to have is the stuff that you're routinely collecting. I mean, you might gather some small amount of information from some specific targeted type review, but you're not going to really have a lot of data to use to really make significant changes. So I think we're talking about the electronic case management system and the other systems that are available. So it's not to say you couldn't have other data, but I think the bulk of it's going to be routinely captured data.
So I'm speaking for my. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to add. I actually,
Daniel,
this
sure.
is Dan. I'm one of the so I did want to actually chime in here because I do think that one of the points of the underlying report is that there are many instances where you want to collect data that can be collected through a case management system that isn't currently being collected. So to me, that addition actually limits what can actually be done here. So I actually like the idea of leaving this more open ended in the spirit of kind of fostering greater awareness of what might be going on in the adjudicative process.
So that's exactly what I was going to say. Thank you, Daniel. That was I kind of liked it leaving it as data because it's not limiting the universe. They're saying they should consider how you can use data. And then one part of that consideration might be, well, we don't actually have that data. Then the next question is, well, how hard is it to get the data? Well, it'd be really easy. Well, that's the kind of conversation I think we would like them to have. And by putting the adjective routinely collected, we cut off that conversation. So I'm speaking as a committee member now, not as chair. I would prefer to keep it as data and not put a limit on it. Russell, what do you think?
My only, data is the plural of datum, which I understand to be a factoid. What else are they going to use? I mean, as opposed to impressions, as opposed to feelings? Use.
Sure, but what about Daniel's point, which is we don't want to limit it to things that they already routinely collect. We want them to think about how they can use information available to them. So it is true that it's a factoid, but we want them to think about how they can use those factoids.
Various sources of data. Data from various sources, something like that. Just something other than the fact that it's sort of like saying quality assurance people should breathe air while they're doing their job. I mean, what else are they going to breathe?
This is Hi. I just want to say my hand is raised just for this. This I had a real substantive issue with because I think all that data that you have and saying agencies should ensure that these systems include this is a big deal. But I certainly saw it as data they were not collecting. So I would say agencies, particularly those with large caseloads, should consider what data would be, I hadn't written this before, what data would be useful for quality assurance purposes. Okay, you don't have to repeat quality. I mean, that's what you have. Just so we see just take out for quality assurance purposes in the addition so people can see what is being changed. Would be useful. Take out also for, no. Okay, whatever.
Is this what you want and how they?
No,
can
no,
use
no.
it?
So don't undo that for quality assurance purposes. Okay, now should consider what data would be useful for, period. No, okay, useful, you can even, okay, not period, useful, take out for. Take out for, would be useful. Okay, now take out how they can use data. Okay, take that out. So now you see what reads, should consider what data would be useful for quality assurance purposes. Okay. Now, because what's really important is the next sentence, right? And what I had written before, something like, as an optimal approach, comma. So let's put it in when then we can discuss. As an optimal approach, agencies, and then make that an A, should ensure that, okay, no, agencies, just all you need is take out the, make that an A, okay. Agencies should ensure that for each case, now then I had a style thing, electronic case management or other systems, I almost always other systems record, you know what I mean? So I think I had electronic case should ensure that for each case, put an "and" in front of electronic. And then take the S after systems, include the following information. Now, to explain my point here, I'm just thinking, all I know is EEOC, but if you're saying that a system is going to include sort of every issue, the whole procedural history, I just think I want agencies to adopt this. So I feel like what we're saying is, as an optimal approach, this is what you should include, because that's the whole point of the first sentence. Consider what data would be useful. But they might decide that for whatever reason, their electronic system or other system is not going to include the entire procedural history. Okay, we're just telling them optimally the data we think would be useful for them.
Daniel or Gerard or Gerald rather, sorry, I apologize. What do you think? Thank you, Hai.
I certainly like the addition of what data would be useful. I was thinking along those lines too. You could say what data is useful and how it can be used was sort of the direction I was going. I'm a little not sure about the term optimal approach, because we're just talking about an optimal approach is data that agency determines to be helpful, which is pretty broad. If you're going for something that's optimal, you probably want to be a little more specific, I would think. So I didn't particularly like that term, but I do think that the idea that they should consider what data they're capturing and how best to use it. And at a minimum, you should have some of this data if you can. But again, some of the agencies don't have the capacity for that either. So I think it's difficult to wordsmith this, but that's kind of my general thoughts on it.
Yeah, the other thing I would add to this, this is Dan Ho,
yeah.
Is that the report actually does describe most of these elements as being kind of a minimum of what a case management system should record. And so I guess when changed here to the optimal approach, again, setting aside D, any other data the agency determines to be helpful, I think it may actually not, it may act more as a kind of ceiling than one would desire. So for instance, when an agency like the Office of Medicare Hearings and Appeals is doing an upgrade to its case management system, a lot of the conversation that I think is useful is for them to look downstream to how they can build in the functionality to capture more microfields of the kind that SSA has kind of built out over time that go beyond what is an A, B, and C to facilitate quality monitoring. So I guess I'm not so sure whether the description here of this as an optimal approach is quite consistent with the way at least we had thought about it in the report.
Hi, I have a question for
Wait,
you.
no, I want to respond because I agree. That's so good, because I really didn't like optimal approach for exactly all of these reasons. You know what I mean? What if you said to the extent practicable? Because, well, put it in and then let me explain. I think it's really important. You know how many times we say agencies should consider doing something as opposed to agencies should ensure. And I really like that. I do think they should get all this information. But when I think Daniel even just said, to the extent they can, anyway, so before you said anything, I just wanted to agree with what had been said by the consultants.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I think along similar lines, doesn't the word should in a recommendation, so it's already a recommendation, so we're not saying, obviously we can't make them do it. And then we already have a should, which again is, not a command. Does that not already do what you're saying? Or would you like to add to the extent practicable or something like that?
Well, you know what? I'm fine about not putting it in. I sort of wanted all of us to be aware as a policy matter. Again, just thinking about the fact that what I tend to think about is obviously all of it is recommendations. We have no authority.
Yeah.
But I feel like we often make this distinction between, we really think you should do this versus you should consider doing this. But based on what the report said, you know what, since we have no more weight other than our, the weight of what we think is good, let's just stick agencies should ensure that for each of these. And then you know what? The agencies that can't do it as a practical matter, they won't do it. But we're not, by taking out as a practical matter, we're not giving them that hook. So I'm fine with taking it out, but I just want us as a committee to understand implications.
Okay, would anyone else like to be heard? I think this has been a helpful exchange. Would anybody else like to be heard on this point?
Can I just make one additional comment?
Of course.
This is Gerald Ray.
Yeah.
When I worked at SSA, I sometimes knew what data would be useful, but sometimes I knew what I was trying to get at, and I wasn't sure what data should be useful. So I still like the concept of what data would be useful and how the data can be used for quality assurance purposes. Because sometimes you could just think of a problem, but you weren't sure what data you needed to solve it. So I thought maybe that would be helpful to leave some of that language in the second line there, but it's it's up to you guys.
What language in particular?
So it says what data would be useful, and we had the language how they can use data. So what language could be useful and how it could be used for quality assurance purposes. It's a slightly different thought.
Mm-hmm.
So Russell, what do you think about that? Have we fixed your initial concern?
Oh yeah, we're well past that.
Okay.
I'm quite happy.
Okay. All right. Would anybody like to be heard on the new 15? All right, hearing none, it is accepted. Thanks, everybody. That was very helpful. Okay, we're down, now we're to 18. And Danny, who's first? Was this Russell first or Jeff first, or what's the order here?
Yeah, Russell first and then Jeff.
Sure. All right, Russell.
Yeah, my only point is we don't want quality assurance systems to improperly influence anybody's decision making, any adjudicator's decision making. So I would switch just switch the sentence around to say, what is it? Agencies should not use information gathered through quality assurance systems in ways that could improperly influence decision making. And I'd say, especially for adjudicators and related personnel who receive performance appraisals, somehow to get the point across that it's okay to manipulate adjudicators who don't receive performance appraisals. That's my only point.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I'll give the first go at this to the consultants, and then I'll throw it to the group. Consultants, are we inadvertently making a mistake by changing this language?
Jack Bierman also has his hand up, Aaron.
That seems fine from my perspective.
Yeah, seems fine.
Okay, Jack, welcome. Thoughts?
I'm a little concerned with the word especially here, because it really shouldn't, there shouldn't be improper influence on anyone. So maybe, but I understand that the word especially calling them out is because it's a special danger, right?
Yeah.
So I would say something like which might be a special danger or something, or might be something with regard to, for adjudicators, which might be more, which something about that. I can't come up with the words right now, but you understand the point I'm trying to make. Might be
including but not limited to.
No, not including but not limited to. It includes everyone. But might which might be, most likely for adjudicators, which could be most likely for adjudicators who receive performance appraisals, something like that.
Aaron, Judge Lesnick and Kent are also.
Something like that. This is not good language, but this is where this is sort of the direction I think we ought to go with this.
Okay.
I don't have a suggestion.
Yeah, take it, Judge. It's your floor.
Yeah, I didn't want to, well, I don't have a suggested change in language, but I did want to associate myself with Russell's comments. I think it's extremely important that quality review and not be a way of controlling the judge's decision-making or influencing them. Sometimes it can be the flip side of independence of the judge. So I just wanted to weigh in on that.
Okay, thank you.
I did like the word, the initial word, by the way, especially. Sorry, Jack.
Yeah, I like especially too, but let's hear some other folks have to say. Kent.
Okay, I guess I'm in the Jack Bierman camp because I didn't care for especially either. And I was wondering whether we really need the clause after decision making. I would think you just don't want to improperly influence decision making, and that would be anything really in the adjudicatory context. And if we're worried that it's not making it clear that it's referring to the adjudicators and related personnel, the very next sentence goes to job performance of administrative law judges and things of that nature. So to me, it's just not necessary to be specific. It's already captured under decision making.
So Russell, if we were to delete everything after decision making, would that be okay for you?
Yeah, I think as always, Kent is on the mark. Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, that's high praise. Okay. Does anybody disagree? Again, I wish we were in person. I would just look around the room and I could see concern on your face. I can't see everybody. So if you're concerned, speak up. It would be helpful.
Good. This is Jack again. I just wonder, whoever wrote this and, whether calling out the problem that non-administrative law judge adjudicators are subject to performance appraisals, whether we want to call out that special problem. I don't know. I lean towards yes, but I don't feel strongly about it.
All right. How about, again, if I could look around the room, I would get a feel for the room. Are folks happy with Kent's change? Jack has a little bit of trepidation. Is there anybody else in the Jack camp, or are we generally in the Kent position? So if you are in the Jack side of this and would like to speak up, here's your chance.
Yeah, so this is high, and that would be
sure.
me. Because again, the consultants, might be helpful here because clearly you thought that was an issue, and I think that's true. So I had been sort of noodling Jack from your language. So what if we said that could improperly influence decision-making, no, I wish we had it there, which could be particularly problematic for, and then let's go back in, let's keep what we have for adjudicators who receive performance appraisals. Jack, take out the extra B. I'm just trying, I understood the concern about especially, but I also think there is something about calling it out because the next one is really about, the prohibition about rating the job performance, And again, I'm with Jack. I don't necessarily feel strongly, but if
I don't feel strongly either. I don't object to this. I don't think it's wrong. I don't know if it's necessary. So that's why I probably end up where Kent is, but I don't object. Kent, what do you think?
I'm in the same place you are. I don't feel strongly, and I never like to be disagreeing with High at all, but I still kind of think it's unnecessary at the end of the day. I think it's already captured within it.
Can I speak up? I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand, but this is Jack.
Sure,
This does, though, it makes the final sentence of this without anything about this, it makes the final sentence a little odd, because all of a sudden we're talking about ALJs, and the point of the earlier stuff is to talk about non-ALJs, really. And so maybe another possibility that the group might want to consider is adding a clause at the end of the last sentence, something to the effect of, while a performance administration, that in making this regulation, that I would add the word "while" before federal law prohibits, up on line 140. What's on line 45? Right there. There are, and then take out the "while" down there and say, there are adjudicators and related personnel who receive performance appraisals, who receive, periodic performance appraisals.
Or maybe if you're trying to tie it to the first sentence, yeah, just do that. And then agencies should not use information gathered through quality assurance systems in ways that could improperly influence decision-making, period. Sort of Ken's thing. Ken, I don't like disagreeing with you either. And then in making this recommendation, recognizes that while federal law prohibits agencies, there are adjudicators, this may be particularly important for adjudicators and related personnel who receive periodic performance appraisals, something like that.
Aaron, there's Jack, I'm not sure if your hand is still up or not, but Gerald and Jim Tozy also have their hands up. And Gerald, you'll have to tell me if your hand is also still up.
It is.
All right, Gerald, the floor is yours.
Okay, I think the most recent change, I really like that. The concept that I thought we should not completely drop out of this particular recommendation was not the notion that you're going to be influencing a particular decision that's been issued, which might be the case with an ALJ or something, if your quality assurance is giving pushback, trying to change the ALJ decision. But for the people who are in performance plans, you might be changing the way they think about issues in the future in an improper way. So I was concerned, if you take out the language about the people who are being rated, you're taking out the important point of not trying to, improperly change the way they do their work going forward, I think. So I think this sort of captures that, may be particularly important for adjudicators and related personnel. So I think keeping the general thought in is probably good, and putting it this way, I think is quite good.
Thank you. Who is next? I'm sorry, I forgot, Danny. Who else is on the queue?
Jim Tozy.
Oh, Jim Tozy. Jim.
Hello, all of you. How are you? Hi, Jack. I was just wondering that last sentence in red, does it have to be at the end of this recommendation, or at the end of that sentence? Can it be up above in the text, someplace else other than the end?
Why are you concerned about the end?
Because I'm a little concerned when I read it as it is, that we're trying to play around with that exemption from the administrative law judges have. We say in the sentence they have it, then it's but other people do have it. It's just that placement of that sentence I have a question about. If you want to put that thought in there, can't you put it upstairs?
Anne, I hate to cold call, but you are amazing at words. Are you still on the line?
I am.
Can you? What do you think?
Give me a moment.
Sure. I'm sorry to call you. I said before you joined that you and Eloise are my wordsmithers on the fly. So I welcome your thoughts here.
Why don't you go ahead and continue the conversation?
Sure. Oh, that's a good idea. Great. Okay, so how about this?
Jack Bierman wanted to
make a friendly amendment to my own suggestion. What do people, instead of periodic performance appraisals, how about agency performance appraisals? Because that's what it's the focus of, is that the agency is doing it. Periodic isn't really relevant, I don't think.
Yeah, put that agents in, and we'll let Anne kind of think about this for a second. We'll loop back to Anne. While we're doing that, let's just give her a little bit of time. We have a comment from Jeff Lubbers, who is not here, about improperly influence as being too cryptic. I'm going to speak now as myself, not as the chair here. I think there is sometimes value in being cryptic. I don't know if we want to explain all the ways what is proper or not. I think that's a bigger fight that this is a placeholder for. So I would be opposed to Jeff's suggestion. But let's talk about that while Anne's kind of looking at the other half of this. Does anybody want to defend Jeff? Jeff's not on the line. And I totally ruined the conversation. I'm learning still how to run a meeting. I shouldn't share my thoughts before I call for comments. Sorry about that. But does anybody want to defend Jeff on that one?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Jeff has lost. So let's delete that comment from Jeff about being too cryptic. And Anne, have you had time to put your thoughts in order?
Yeah, I mean, it is convoluted, but the content is good.
Sorry, I shouldn't put you on the spot. I apologize.
No, it's okay. I mean, is it, I understand this is a concern coming from OPM. But is there a way to simplify? It's almost as if the detail is causing the issues, but of course the principle is a strong one. So I'm wondering if fewer words would actually be better.
Yes, that's often my gut on these things is sometimes we get lost when we say more, but what do we cut here? Agencies should not use information gathered through quality assurance systems in ways that could improperly influence decision-making.
Or like that could improperly influence decision-making or personnel decisions.
And then
just cut the rest.
That's bold. I like that. Let's see. Can you try that, Matt, to see what that looks like?
I'm sorry, can you say that again? I was addressing
Sure. So the first sentence you would just add to the end. So it would say agencies should not use information gathered through quality assurance systems in ways that could improperly influence decision-making or personnel decisions.
Hi, what do you think?
Yeah, so I don't think, I agree with Anne about the less is more on this. So that's what I think we should be looking at. I don't think we want to say personnel decisions because we have that separately. That is a separate, in a separate recommendation, very important, right? You can't be using this when you assess. I think what we heard before from the consultants is that we're particularly concerned about how they might act going forward. Now, of course, we do want them to act better going forward if what they were doing was not so good. But to the extent that we're saying it shouldn't improperly influence, I would take out our personnel decisions. I would look at the second sentence, which is the one that we are sort of struggling with. I think it's fine, actually, to switch it, to say, in making this recommendation, the conference ran that this may be particularly important for adjudicators who receive agency performance appraisals, period. Okay, it's particularly important for that. So now let's see, what are we trying to get by saying the second sentence? But now what would be the third sentence? What exactly, I mean, before we just had in making the recommendation, the conference recognizes, what are we trying to say here? I mean, and just looking at it, and I think we have to go to the recommendation where we say, don't use this to make, personnel decisions. Don't we actually maybe also say that already where we say personnel? I think we need to look at where we do address personnel decisions, because Anne, you're totally right that this seemed to be, affecting that.
Danny, can I call on you? Do we
Sure.
address this point somewhere else?
I do think we addressed that point. I actually have I have different language you could use to offer. You could say something like, this may be particularly important for adjudicators and related personnel who, unlike administrative law judges, may be subject to performance appraisals or eligible for awards or incentives.
Yes.
Because let's put that in there. Thank you, Danny. That was really helpful. Thank you.
Excellent.
You said maybe subject to agency performance appraisals or receive.
I'll send this to you.
Or I see, or receive any monetary. There we go.
And then get rid of the rest. I think that was very helpful. Thank you.
And help from Jeremy Grayboys as well.
Oh, thank you, Jeremy. All right. I'm trying to remember where we started on this one.
Can I add?
Jack, yeah,
one
Jack,
tiny little suggestion
you're
on
part
that?
of this. Jack, you have the floor.
I'm sorry, can we, between for and adjudicators, can we put the word those? Would that help? The conference recognizes this may be particularly important for those adjudicators and really who unlike administrative law judges. Is that a good, nice addition there?
I think so.
I think so.
All right, Jack, with those added, are you okay with this paragraph? Does it work for you?
A beautiful joint effort, August body.
Aaron, Jim and Gerald both have their hands up.
Great. Jim, then Gerald.
I think it's a great paragraph, but I just wonder why we have to put unlike administrative law judges.
Well, because we're trying. I think what we're trying to say is we're acknowledging that there's federal law that says you can't do that to administrative law judges. So
Yeah, but we did that at the end, the other sentence, didn't we?
But I think we just got rid of that.
No. I mean, before we made Jack's change, okay? Making this recommendation could recognize, but it's still, I'm reading the draft here. And making this recommendation, the conference recognizes that blah, 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 who unlike the administrative may be subject to. So that's the last sentence now, right?
Yes.
So I don't see the big change from where we started.
I think it includes all
There's
of
a lot
the
of agreement.
concepts.
I didn't want to draw the comparison in the last sentence of opening the door for addressing the administrative laws judges being subject to these appraisals. And that's where we started. And we ended with all this average rate of $800 an hour consulting, lawyers. And I end up in the same sentence where we started. It's in the last sentence as I read it.
All right, then I guess I'm misunderstanding your concern. What is your substantive?
My concern was at the end, as it was originally written. We put that in addition. We stated they had the administrative law judges had this reprieve, and then we added, but there's other people who are subject to it. And my point was, why couldn't we make that point, others subject to it, not directly comparison with administrative law judges, which could be reading, some might read as, well, they said they have it, but maybe there's open season to open that issue up with administrative law judges. So my concern was not to put in the last sentence that comparison. Couldn't you make that point someplace up and above the text other than the end of the last sentence?
I guess maybe I'm being dense. I don't understand how that person could read in the way that you are fearful of.
Well, let's see. It says, in making this, the conference recognizes, blah, blah, may not be particular. Unlike administrative law judges may be subject to agency performance or review. I mean, that's, well, maybe I'm overly sensitive to it, but it sticks out to me. We end the paragraph, we end the recommendation saying that the administrative law judges are not subject to it, but other people are. And I'm just saying, if that's an important section, why can't that be stated someplace, not with a direct comparison with administrative law judges? What does that bring to the table?
Aaron, Gerald and David both have their hands up.
Sure, Gerald.
I had an unrelated comment. I was going to suggest on line 146, you change receive to eligible for.
Yeah. Well, it's somewhat related. Okay. Who is next, Danny? I'm sorry, I forgot.
Dave.
All right, Dave.
Yeah, I'm reluctant to suggest this after this extremely thoughtful conversation, but it gives me some pause that to continue this paragraph after the first sentence, because I worry that it signals that information gleaned through quality assurance processes really ought not to be used in performance appraisals. And I don't think that's our sense. And I don't think it's consistent with some agency practices that we've learned about. And so I think I would wonder whether we should consider Anne's recommendation going back to just the first sentence, perhaps including personnel matters or not, but just the first sentence, remove the rest. That sentence, would encompass improperly influenced decision making would also encompass not using quality assurance results in a way that would be improper as part of a performance appraisal. So I don't want to signal, I would be reluctant to signal that somehow quality assurance data and findings are not properly fodder for performance appraisals.
All right. I'm going to put myself in the queue, which I do all the time anyway, but I'll put myself in the queue. I like that change. I think that we've spent a lot of time on this, and it sounds like there's a whole bunch of ways that this can be read sideways that we don't mean. So often in that case, the right answer is to raise the level of abstraction and not get into the details. And that first sentence is a pretty darn good job of the principle that we're trying to invoke, and we're not telling people how specifically to apply it. So I like that. I would go with David on this one and just end there and be done with this thought. But that's me in the queue. Does anybody else have thoughts on this?
Aaron, I can just, for your own benefit, I'll just note that on lines 50 to 51, we do make this point in the preamble, so it may already be covered, as Jim noted, above the recommendations themselves.
Even better. Jim, if we were to cut out everything after influence decision-making and just be done with it, would that be okay for you?
I would name my next grandchild after you.
All right. Well, okay. I don't know what to say to that. That was very good. All right. Anne, what about you? Again, I hate to cold call, but you're so great. So what do you think there?
I weakly lean toward adding personnel matters because we obviously decision-making can include internal and external matters. And the preamble that Danny mentioned, of course, I mean, if it's the preamble, even better to put in the recommendation. And that would at least kind of signal that there's, that you could, by saying improperly used in personnel, that there are some proper uses and some improper ones. And we don't have the concern about, maybe kind of putting ALJs, in the target.
Hi, what do you think?
Unmute. Okay. Can we find, I know we started to look for it. So can we just find where we say don't use this? Because this is really important, because ultimately someone who's really messing up a lot, I don't know. So let's just see where we say that. And if we haven't said it, then obviously, I just remember this EOC.
That's what Danny was just discussing. She gave the lines in the preamble.
Yes,
yeah, I know.
Danny, can you look at the lines of the preamble so we can all see it?
And then let's see if it's not in a recommendation, in which case,
So there's two points. There's lines 50 to 51 in the preamble, which includes the kind of ALJ mention and laws. And then what I'm hearing you reference is the personnel point more specifically, and that's on
Yes.
recommendation 7.
Okay.
So
Recommendation 7. Let's just take a look at it.
Yeah, can
'Cause
we
I
look at
just-
recommendation 7, Matt?
Yeah. Let's see here. Okay. No, that's not that. Right. 7 is just they can perform the functions. I thought this is what I remembered from EOC, that you don't want in sort of a random sampling to then tie it back to the person whose case happened to be caught in that random sample. I mean, that's what the union was saying. Look, obviously people are going to get their performance reviews. Obviously in the performance reviews of administrative judges, you might look at how many times they've been reversed, which we don't and we should. But it shouldn't be that in the random stuff that it gets attributed back. I know I read this somewhere because I wouldn't have remembered this on my own. So,
But doesn't the word improper already do that? We're saying that there's other things outside of this recommendation that we are incorporating by reference. So to the extent that there's rules and things against it, we're not touching on that.
I know, but it's a really big point. Like if you're going to, again, agencies are going to know that what they're, does not interfere.
Well, and if I can weigh in here on this, I mean,
Sure.
in the IRS, there's the union, you cannot use random quality review samples for the purposes of a performance evaluation. You have to do specific reviews of that employee, for purposes of the performance evaluation.
Also, Matt Gluth found the right one, I think, on recommendation 11.
Okay.
Correct. And look, that's what it says.
Yeah.
It's not interfere with applicable restrictions governing ex parte with internal separation, well, of decisional and adversarial personnel. Nina, do you think that gets to what does that mean? Internal separation of decisional and adversarial. Oh, no, that's different. That's like ex parte. Maybe I read it in the preamble, but we couldn't seem to find it there either, could we? Like if we see how it's written in the preamble, then that's what we would copy in the recommendation. Let's see. Yeah, going up. Okay, start from the beginning. Identify, misapplied, recommends the use of it. Okay, go ahead, go down. Wait, stop.
Line 32.
Line 32. No, that's about the against rating the performance. Agencies must also design quality assurance systems to comply with all applicable requirements. It is such as the statutory prohibition against rating the job performance of or grading an administrative law judge, or, and I don't want to say the union things, or using information from random things. That's where Michael, although that's really long. Let's put a pin in that and let's just see if there's anything else below in the preamble that says, let's not do the random, whether it's gonna be added there. Okay, go down.
Because I don't want to get bogged down forever in this one thought.
I know this one issue. Maybe I don't know. It's just such an important issue. God. All right, well, it's not there in either. Well,
let's go down and look at the recommendation again. This is
yeah.
we're in the room. What I would do at this point, it would be take a straw poll and see if this is the concern of the committee or the concern of a couple of members of the committee. I'm not sure. So I'm going to just do it the best I can on Zoom of a straw poll here, which is if you are concerned about the language on the screen, say so in the queue, put like a an X in the queue and we can see how many people are concerned about the language on the screen. And if not, then I'm inclined to go forth with what we have.
Now,
The recommendation, Matt, is to just have the first sentence and not have the rest of the paragraph.
Right. I just wanted to make that clear before we took the poll.
All right. So we're going to take a poll here. Who is concerned with the language that we have?
I'm confused. What are we taking a poll on? Which is it? The language that's showing up on the screen?
Yeah. The language we have now, 18 will just be that first sentence and not the rest of the sentence, not the rest of the recommendation.
If we say yes, that means we like it this way. If we don't say yes, it means we'd rather have more of the language in.
If you are concerned about it, say X in the chat.
Um,
I'm not clear when I should say X.
If you are concerned about the language on the screen, if that language on the screen is not sufficient for you, say X. All right, it looks like we have 2 X's. I'm going to go with what we have on the screen. I don't want 3 X's. Even so, that's not enough, I think, for us to spend more time on it. I understand the concern, and maybe it'll be picked up by the council, but I think we could go all day on this, and I think that language does the trick, especially given that there are laws in place, and we're not telling anybody to violate the laws.
Aaron, may I just add, this is Matt.
Sure.
I'm the one that probably created this problem in the first instance. And I think the language that's on the screen, for what it's worth, is written as it should be. And I'm very satisfied with it. If during the run up to the plenary session, you or other committee members think that there's a way to phrase this in a better way, we could always take that up at the session in the form of an amendment.
That's true. Okay, thank you, Matt. I hate to be a bully, but is that okay, Nina, Jack, hi, if we go with this?
I will try to think of, I'll take Matt up and try to think of some alternative language. I think that you're really underestimating the issue in many of the agencies. On the issue of random quality review versus reviews that can be used for performance ratings. I think you're really underestimating, and I can just say that from my personal experience.
I just want to say you're not being a bully. You're being a good chair.
I want to associate myself with both Jack and Nina. I think you're being a good chair. I also associate that, you know, this is one of the more important things, but I would, just picking up on what Matt suggested, Nina, I'd be happy to work with you on maybe some language that makes it clear this point about not using the random piece, and based on the fact that we didn't see that in the preamble, it might be both a sentence for the preamble and then a sentence for recommendation 18 or a modification of the language.
All right, thank you. I will look forward to the language that you and Nina put together. Thank you so much for that. All right, let's accept the change as we have it for now. We'll take the vote later and the language might come. Thank you, everybody. All right, 19, consistent with paragraph 11. Is that still paragraph 11, Danny, that we're looking at?
Probably not, but it is going to be.
Okay.
We'll fix that, yeah.
Yeah, we'll fix it. That's a committee on style. So highlight 11 and we'll make sure it's the correct one, and we'll accept that and we'll go to the next one here. So just highlight 11 so we know that it's not that number, or yeah, better still, however you want to do a comment, either way. Great. All right, let's go down, let's keep looking. I think we're almost there. I guess we're not almost there. All right. Okay. Russell, it's been a while. Do you want to say what you're thinking for 21? We'd just like to hear your voice.
It's a comment about this whole block. I mean, it's stuck into 21 is institutionalized communication mechanisms, but all these, this whole series of recommendations from, what is it, from 19 through 2022 are about communication. And my thought is, subject to the group obviously, is whether or not there should be a separate paragraph speaking specifically to establishing communication mechanisms rather than bury it in this hyphenated phrase, I suggested new paragraph. Agency should establish regular communication mechanisms to facilitate the transfer of various types of quality assurance information within the agency. And that would go at the end.
Yes, let's see what that looks like.
And my point is that on line 151, I think that's probably relevant to all of them, but I may be missing something.
One of my consultants, do you want to chime in? Daniel or David? I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but I don't know what I don't know. So I want to make sure that I'm not inadvertently creating a problem, but I don't think we are.
I'm in the same boat, and I would, if they go along with it, then we would strike that hyphenated phrase at one.
Correct. Then we'd strike the hyphenated phrase.
Aaron, Hi, and Bill Funk both have their hands up, or maybe Hi doesn't, just Bill.
Okay, Bill Funk.
It's really, I thought 22 said something that wasn't immediately apparent. That would, in other words, 23 would be fine to substitute for everything, except for 22, which seemed to me a little more specific and something that I didn't think was so readily apparent as the other 20 and 21. And one way to deal with that would be, if others had the same feeling, would be to say, putting at the end of the now 23, comma, including communicating with agency, including whether quality assurance personnel should communicate information about problems identified and issue decisions to adjudicators or other agency officials who are authorized to remedy the problem. In other words,
So you're combining 22 and the new 23?
Yeah.
Russell Wheeler, does that work?
Yeah, I guess.
It was just.
Yeah. No, it does. Sure, it does.
Okay. Does anybody have any concerns about deleting between the M dashes and the new 22?
So this is,
something missing there, though.
now I did raise my hand, but I was going to have my hand. When I read it, this is really just a question. And I had the same question when I was first reading this. I just need to understand what we now have in 158 to 161. What are we saying there that is different than what we're saying in now recommendations 20 and 21, right? Because here's agencies should communicate the systemic recurring or emerging problems to all personnel participating in this process. As appropriate, the personnel should communicate with the agency rule writers to allow them to consider whether it should be addressed or clarified by rules. And then, well, the way 22 was written before, which was my concern, agencies should consider whether the personnel should communicate information about problems to those authorized to remedy the problem. So I wasn't quite sure what that was covering and why that was should consider as opposed to should. Okay, so that was my question when I read it. So I would like to know the answer to that. And now it seems the way we've done it should establish regular communication mechanisms, including whether, so actually I don't think that's work, including whether. So number one, I agree with taking it out from the brackets, okay? Because I think that's a separate point. Establish regular communication mechanisms, period, within the agency in 158, period, okay? Because they should communicate, and they should establish the regular mechanisms. Yes. Okay, now, what is the point about saying they should consider whether these personnel should communicate information about problems identified? Oh, I see. This is about, okay, so this is a different point. what you're saying here is it's not a systemic problem. Well, I'm not going to try to come up with it. Whoever wrote it, what is it that you were trying to say in that that's different from 20 and 21? I'm starting to see what it could be, but let the person who wrote it or took
We
it from the
we have
report.
two authors, which is
This was authored by ACA staff in response to a question that we received from the committee last time, which was what would happen if, I'm trying to find, it's up here somewhere in the,
Yeah, I asked it, what happens if someone finds out after everything's done that there's been a obvious mistake? How does it get fixed? The kind of question, the way I put it, the kind of question maybe an agency official wouldn't ask, but some enterprising journalist might.
that was the comment indeed. It was, so a difference in benefit amounts to a particular claimant in a particular circumstance. Should we include something that that agencies should come up with a mechanism for remedying that through whatever systems the agencies have set up for such a thing?
And they wrote 22. Well, I don't know what it is now as a response to that.
Mhm. I see. Well, I think what was written is really overbroad and then sort of confusing. I mean, that's a good question, Russell. Like, what should we do about that, right? I don't think that this language is the way to answer that. Okay. Now let's think about your question. Isn't this the case that that sort of we just have to live with that? I mean, isn't this the case about if it's random, we're really looking at it as a systemic problem. We're not going to be able to track it back into that individual person in any sort of performance review.
Mhm.
And we can't go in and say, we're correcting that one. Maybe there were 6 other situations that also had the mistake, but we just didn't happen to catch those. This is not appellate review.
Well,
Right. So anyway, yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, we may get to that later because I have another suggestion that may cover all of that earlier. And as the more I think about it, maybe it's just best to withdraw that point. I see what you're saying, although it's going to rankle some people.
Aaron, can I just clarify some of the kind of sequencing of the recommendations?
Yeah,
and then I just also want to note that Dan and Bill Funk have their hands up as well. So I think, with regards to recommendation 20, 21, and 22, you can distill them down into 3 very simple points. 20 is you should be telling adjudicators and staff about systemic problems. 21 is you should also be telling policy components about these systemic problems. And then 22 is you should also be telling or consider telling appellate bodies to correct these problems in individual cases. So that's kind of the structure for 20, 21, and 22 in terms of sequencing. But I also want to make sure Dan and Bill Funk get a chance to say something.
Dan and then Bill.
Danny, I think you captured it perfectly in terms of the 3 different audiences for whom QA information is being communicated. And I think the current language in 22 kind of makes that a little bit less clear in my mind. So, but one possibility here could be, since this is obviously causing some confusion for folks, that I might suggest is we could take, I think, Russell, it was your suggestion of adding this general language. Agencies should establish regular communications mechanisms to facilitate the transfer. Put that up on top and have these 3 be sub recommendations that go to the 3 different audiences. And that I think to the reader might be clear. The one thing to clarify in terms of what the original 22 was trying to get at is the example that we've seen in a number of different agencies where they're trying to establish mechanisms to have better communication between the appellate body and the initial adjudicatory body. So at SSA, there's a committee of 2 ALJs and 2 appeals council members who will take disagreements when ALJs disagree with the quality a decision by the appeals council and have a mechanism to actually see whether there might have been an error in that process.
I think the way 20 has been reformatted makes a lot of sense.
All right, Bill Funk.
I took my hand down because I agreed completely with Dan.
Okay, that's helpful. All right. Does anybody wish to be heard on this?
I just want to say that I like it.
Oh, thank you. All right, well then, if no one else wishes to be heard, we'll go with this language. Thanks, everybody.
Would we like to retain crossing out yes, we would, never mind.
Yep. Awesome, thank you. And we can delete that comment too, Russell? That's been mooted. All right.
Yeah, oh, sure, yeah, right. That's what sparked the whole thing.
Yep, great. Okay, so now we have from Tristan, whatever the proposed language ends up being, this would be clear if it read communication information to appellate adjudicators.
I think this might be addressed maybe some, I mean, so it's the same in all three of these, right? It's what if problematic information comes up? We say some places recurring issues, problems identified. I don't know if we want to try and put that up top in some way. The point here was simply that in issued decisions, just the way that runs in issued decisions to appellate adjudicators, it made it confusing when you are communicating to the adjudicators. It's now hard since you have the other agency officials, but again, you maybe could, so you can do it that way, the way you have it right there, or I don't know if it's worth putting this. I don't know if there's enough similarity between A, B, and C to put it up top, just to say, communication mechanisms regarding, again, problematic information or issues identified. Just because there's a little bit of duplication then in A, B, and C, just where they could be parallel, but it could also just be fine as it is. Would
it be helpful for efficiency to just committee on style all of this to make it parallel and in structure, and then we can move on to more substantive discussions?
I think so, unless anybody has a substantive concern with that, but not hearing any, that's what we'll do.
Well, it should be noted that A and B are shoulds and C is should consider. And that's that's not a style issue. That's a substantive issue, is whether or not we want them to consider it or to should communicate. And I defer at least at this point as to what the drafters intended, why some were shoulds and one was should consider.
At this point, Judge Easterbrook's observation that a document prepared by multiple people has no author, I think is accurate. I don't know who the author is at this point. We've changed it so many ways and so many different times. So I don't know if that thought is intentional or not. What do you think? Should it be a consider there or should it be a should?
Well, personally, I thought should consider, because it seems there's problems involved here, or potential problems that are involved here that aren't involved in A and B. And that's why I thought it should be a little less dogmatic as to whether they should do it or not.
I agree with that. That's my instinct as well. Does anybody want to get rid of the consider in 20C?
And I just wanted to make sure that if we're leaving things to committee of style, that the style people would recognize that that's not a style.
I agree with that. All right, hearing none, we'll do that. I commit to the committee on style. We'll make sure that, but we're going to keep the consider in C and not in A and B. Okay.
But do take out subcommittee. I agree, by the way. Should remedy the problems, take out about problems. Let's do that for the committee on style so they don't have to do it.
Okay. Yep. All right, great. So now we're at, is it 23? We have a comment from Jeff. Jeff is not here. I'm not inclined to add it because the 1973 recommendation is still in operation. We're not superseding anything. So I don't think we need to say it. It seems redundant to me. But if anybody wants to defend Jeff here, speak up now. Now would be a good time to do it. All right, hearing none, we'll delete the comment. All right, we're almost there. We're at the end. We have Russell Wheeler about the word public. And you mentioned this earlier, Russell, will you?
Yeah, we talked about it last time. I just don't know who this is described in line 1 as an internal review process. What does the public know about it? Unless it's referring to these various, researchers and others who study case management data that the agencies release. But I mean, there was, as I recall, that during the discussion last time, there was some pushback about leaving the impression that some of this information would be publicly available because it's quite sensitive. I thought the whole question was left in abeyance last time, and I just flagged it again.
Correct. So what is your suggestion here? Do you want to be more specific what we mean by public? Do you want it to omit public altogether?
Well, I think it's for the drafters, what the drafters had in mind, what kind of feedback they're looking for from the public or the consultants. Maybe, I mean, I just may be missing something. That's often the case.
Consultant?
I don't think we want to start getting into a lot of phrases, feedback from the public in the area of case management, but not others. That gets a little complicated. So I guess it's what public the drafters had in mind. And if everybody's happy with it, I'm happy with it too, but it just struck me as a strange reference in what is an internal system.
Can I ask one of my consultants what their thoughts are on this one? I'm not picky which one.
Yeah, this is Dave Marcus. I think my understanding is that there are various external observers who might have an interest in evaluating how well a quality assurance system is working. It is an internal agency mechanism for evaluating quality decision making, but it's done. I think there are a lot of people who might want to keep an eye on how well it's performing. And so if there's a better term than public, that's fine. But it seems like other terms that come to mind are somewhat awkward. Interested external parties, interested external observers. I'm not sure what would better capture that idea than the term public.
This is Dan Hogue. Just to add 2 quick notes to that. One is that a number of these quality assurance systems do actually regularly run surveys of parties who've interacted with the system to try to understand what the level of kind of satisfaction is. So again, that may be a narrower set of individuals than the public at large, but I think there are agencies that use that as a kind of input. The other, maybe just to give some examples to what Dave is articulating, is in the veterans context, there are veteran service organizations who actually have pretty deep knowledge about emerging issues. And in the Social Security context, one of the interviews we conducted was with the National Organization of Social Security Claimants representatives, who also themselves felt like, wow, we have a sense of what some of how some of the changes in precedent have actually affected the quality of the adjudicatory process. And so this is really to acknowledge that there may be the potential to bring those insights in to identify potential areas for improvement.
All right.
Hi, Nina and Bill. All have their hands up.
Okay. All right. Just a quick roadmap. And what we're going to do is we're going to discuss this until the hour, and then we're going to take a break. So, and then we'll do the preamble. So what was the order? Hi, Bill, and...
Hi, Nina and Bill.
Hi, Nina and Bill. All right. Hi, Nina, and then Bill on the word public.
Okay, so number 1, Russell, thank you for raising it, because if you had the question, others will, including the plenary. And again, I understood you just asking the question, why do we want this, as opposed to the particular wording? I think it's very important, both for the reasons you just heard from the consultants, but also because we do want, number 1, sort of the de-identified information out there to the stakeholders, and you can also say stakeholders, to show that you are doing this work, but then you also want to affirmatively solicit feedback from people. And it's like at the EOC, I thought it was important to put our quality standards on the website for our folks, and then, ask people, do they think we had that right? So I think it's important, and I think it'll be relevant.
Do you have any language? Are you concerned with the word public as a placeholder for the idea?
No, I actually think the public is exactly the right word. And I was just trying to reflect, Russell was more about asking a question, did we, as a policy matter, did we want to do this? Russell, you can tell me if that's right, as opposed to, worrying about the particular word. But from my perspective, that word is correct.
Okay. All right, Nina.
Well, I'm agreeing with Chai. And I think originally I was thinking, well, maybe you could say interested stakeholders, but I think public is the appropriate word. It incorporates interested stakeholders, but it's broad. And I think you would want that commentary.
Aaron, you might consider doing a straw poll quickly to see if there's.
I agree with Nina and
public.
Guy.
Well, it sounds like, I'll say this, if anybody is not okay with public, speak now or hold your peace. All right, we have got public. Public will be the word. Thanks for the discussion. I am indifferent on Jeff's recommendation about quality assurance or their systems. It's referring to the same thing. Does anybody strongly object to the language we have on the screen? All right, hearing none, we will go with the language that we have. All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to take a break. Let's take, 10 minutes. We'll be back and we'll power through in this last little while, which is just the preamble.
Aaron, can I ask you something before we break?
Sure.
I have to leave to go teach a class. Can I vote on the recommendation before it's absolutely finalized and my vote be recorded?
I don't know the rules of ACUS on that. Matt Weiner, what is the rule on that? Matt is not here.
I wrote in favor.
I am here. I am here. Let me, can we turn to Sean McGibbon, our general counsel, on this one? I guess there's three possibilities. One, Jack can't vote on it. Two, Jack can vote on it. Or three, Jack could give his proxy to someone. So if I could turn to Sean,
Sure.
And if she's not here, Reeve.
Yeah, I'm here. I would say, Jack, maybe you could give your proxy to someone. And of course, if you have any objection, to what, assuming the council puts this on the agenda, if you have any objection, you could raise it again at the plenary session.
Okay, I'm gonna give my proxy to Chris Walker, and I'll do it in writing in the chat, but on the condition that he not do what he threatened to do in the second part of his.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, everyone come back in 10 minutes and we'll finish this up. Thanks everybody. Take a break, get something, have some water, and we'll power through. Thanks all. All right, everybody. So just an implementation step. There's a fair number of comments on the preamble. Many of them are from Jeff Lubbers, who is not here. These are not substantive, as I understand them. So what I propose to do, and if anyone wants to, oppose, speak up now, is we're going to send all of those to the Committee on Style. Replacing with systematic, with on a systematic basis, things of that sort. These are just style points, which the Committee on Style can do. I don't want to waste the committee's time on each of these individually. So if people want to speak up now, speak up. But otherwise, what we're going to do is that's all going to be Committee on Style.
Aaron?
Yes, Russell.
Except for one that is substantive. The three of mine fall in the same category, and I would put them in the same category.
Good, but we'll do that individually when it comes to you. You're here, so I can hear.
All right, okay. I was just trying to speed things
Jeff
along.
isn't even here, so I don't want us to guess what he's trying to do. Okay, all right. Hearing none, that's what we're going to do for the Jeff Lubbers comments. Let's look now. The very first one is from Robert Gerard, who has a more substantive recommendation. Robert? Robert Gerard, are you still on the line? Okay.
When we come back to that one.
Yeah, let's come back. Let's come back to that one. Otherwise, I think we'll keep it as we have it, because my understanding is that Judge Manuel has withdrawn his request. So I don't think we need to rejigger things for a withdrawn request, but we'll go back to that. We'll see if Robert comes back. So let's go to the next one, which is from Russell Wheeler. Is this one of your substantive points or your stylistic points?
I think it's already been taken care of. It's just stylistic. It's
Okay,
just
great. Accepted.
overuse
then.
of the word issues.
Perfect. All right, Jeff, we're skipping that one. We're skipping the next one too, about denials and failures provided. That's going to be Committee on Style. Russell Wheeler, this one we have.
Yeah, this is the substantive one.
Yes.
And it, you know, I'm more on the outside of this than others are, but it just struck me, it might be helpful just to say what this quality assurance isn't. I mean, Hai made a reference earlier. It's not a method for, you know, correcting errors. Perhaps, and the paragraph that shows in the margin is the one I suggested, and obviously not wedded to the language, but just to lay out at the outset what this isn't. It's not a surrogate for appellate review, and it's not a method of to replace agency, you know, judicial misconduct and discipline systems. And whether that would be helpful, you know, not so much for agency officials and other stuff, but for others who are less familiar with it.
Consultants, are we doing damage by adding this language? Maybe Gerald, what do you think?
So you know, we definitely wanted to make the point somewhere about the notion that what we were thinking about in terms of quality assurance was sort of trying to improve decisional quality. And there are all these other potential definitions, which would include the comportment of the judges and those types of things. So I do think that making some type of a comment up front here is really a pretty good idea to do.
And is this particular language okay
Yeah,
by light?
I'm taking a look at it again. So let me just
Sure.
make sure.
I realize there's a lot of text there. I want to make sure
Yeah.
that we're okay.
While Gerald looks, this is Dave Marcus. I can't turn on my
Sure.
camera for some reason. The one thing that it looks pretty good to me, but the one thing I would say is, I don't know that quality assurance programs assess adjudicatory characters that are not typically subject to appellate review. That's certainly true. I would say something like, and they may assess adjudicatory characteristics that are not typically subject to appellate review.
Russell, is that a helpful?
That makes sense. Yeah, right.
Okay. Bill Funk, is your hand up for this?
Yes, it is.
All right, Bill.
The next to last sentence in this new thing, nor are they mainly avenues for collateral attack. I would say they are not avenues for collateral attack. Not
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right, Danny, does anyone else have their hands up?
I'll just comment that having read it now, I think it looks pretty good the way it's written now.
Okay, thank you. I was going to call on you next. You beat me to the punch.
Bill Funkin, hi.
Bill already made his
Oh,
point.
Bill, okay.
Hi.
I have a tiny one. I'm not on line 21. What is the point of nevertheless? This
Well,
recommendation,
because of the sentence that precedes it.
it provides further guidance that may wish to implement. Nevertheless, I'm not sure you need nevertheless. I mean, you're making the point
Yeah.
of unlike agencies. I mean, maybe you need a connector, but
Yeah, I think maybe I'm sorry, I missed that. Maybe my point was this ought to come on line 19, interjected after the call for note 2, such as appellate systems, nevertheless.
See how that looks.
supplements. Oh, no, if it's supplement, then you don't need nevertheless, unlike, let's go up to the sentence before, let's go up to that full sentence before 19. Okay. recommend since then have implemented other things to supplement. Yeah, unlike agencies' appellate systems. I mean, the whole point is they've done it to supplement, and here's partly why. Unlike the appellate systems, it does all this other stuff. And I think this is a really good, I mean, together as the, you know,
Yeah.
it's a good point.
Russell, do you,
I'm fine with everything.
okay, great. Does anybody want to be heard on this who hasn't been heard? All right, hearing none, we'll go with it. Thank you so much, Russell. I agree. That's a very helpful addition. And not stylistic. That was substance. That was very good. Thank you. All right. Then we have another Jeff Lubbers, which is Committee on Style. Then now we do have a substantive point here, which our consultants, I think, fairly say, based on their research, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that it's important that we don't forget decisional accuracy is an essential part of what we're doing with a quality assurance system. So we wanted to put language to that effect to say that you shouldn't overemphasize timeliness at the expense of accuracy. I think that language is helpful. I like that, for example, to show that it's illustrative and not exhaustive. But you know, consultants, you know, Dan, Dave, or Gerald, does this help for you?
It does. This is Dan. I like the illustration and using it and giving it as an example. Yeah, I think it's nicely done.
I see a hand. Is that high? Is this a new hand? Oh, the hand is withdrawn. Okay. Does anybody object or want to be heard on this one? Otherwise, we will accept it. Okay, it is accepted. Great. Thank you so much. All right, we have the next one. Russell, is this one of your style points?
I think it's pretty stylistic, yeah.
Great. Committee on Style it is. Okay, now we have a point where Hai pinned earlier, but I think we resolved that on the substance earlier too, and that you and Nina were going to collaborate on some possible language to propose at the plenary. Am I misconstruing what your point was there, Hai?
Nope, not at all. That's exactly right. This is, so we might have some language for the preamble as well as this. Yeah.
Perfect. So Matt, please delete that comment about the pin. No, I think we're keeping the language. I think there was a pin about adding like, so undo.
Yeah.
We want to keep the language, but we're deleting the pin.
Right.
Okay. No problem.
It's gone again. So bring it.
I got it. I have to rewrite it.
Okay. But you're gonna write the language that we initially had there. We don't want to delete the language from the preamble. Just because there's a pin in it doesn't mean we wanted to delete what we had. Correct.
Oh, so
we want to keep that. We want to keep the language. We're just deleting the pin.
oh, okay. The pin was, or the language was added now, and I thought it was going to be replaced with a new draft language for the preamble that was going to be supplied.
Yeah, that's what they're going to propose, but that was the language that we had coming into today's thing. This was the language we circulated beforehand.
I believe this language was added. Oh, no, you're right. You're right. My mistake. Yes.
Okay. So let's keep that language, and Nina and Hai will come up with something before the plenary. So, all right, thank you. All right, we added layered, but so we added that substantive recommendation. Robert, are you on the line? Okay, he's not on the line. If this is consistent with what we already accepted, does anybody have a problem with independently or in combination? I think it's exactly what we said with the layered approach that we accepted in the recommendation. So All right, hearing none, we will accept his proposed edit, which I think is helpful.
If I could move us up a few lines.
Sure.
We had at the previous committee, we'd added and ethical requirements to on line 37. And there was some concern at the ACA staff that and ethical was a vague term. And so we are proposed, and it was suggested to delete and ethical. And we wanted to address the committee on this, whether we should keep only legal requirements, have legal and ethical requirements, or use what you had recommended at one point and just use the generic requirements so that it would apply to any kind of.
So in the recommendations, there was a proposal to have an ethical added there, and the committee did not accept that. So I thought that we also got rid of it for preamble purposes, and we would just go with either legal requirements or requirements. Does anybody, that's how I remember what we decided. Does anybody want to keep legal and ethical in there? Hi.
No, I was going to speak for, let's definitely do requirements and
Okay,
not
thank
legal
you.
and ethical, because there'll be some requirements from union contracts, which
Okay.
could be legal, but no, take out, just make it all applicable requirements.
All right, does anybody else want to be heard on that? Okay, seeing none. All right, let's keep going. Now we have Russell. Is this if this looks more substantive?
Well, it's quasi substantive. I just want to be sure with their programs are the quality assurance programs. The next page, the text refers to adjudicative programs. I just thought it's just an ambiguity there that we just might as well clear up. I think the drafters meant their quality assurance programs. But if they meant
Yeah, no. Yeah, correct. I think we mean quality assurance programs. Is that correct? Either, I guess I'll ask the consultants. Is that what you think we mean by this? Does that make sense?
This is Dave Marcus again. I apologize. I can't get my video started. I don't think so. I think that the idea here is that there are different types of quality review that agencies can use depending upon the needs and goals of their adjudicative programs. But Dan or Gerald, do you see otherwise?
Well, then this is a really helpful point. Thank you, Russell. All right, so Dave thinks this maybe we mean adjudicative programs here. Dan or Gerald?
That's how I read it. Again, we did not draft this language, but it seems like the idea of this sentence is how one would tailor methods of quality review to the form of adjudication that exists within the agency.
Okay.
So it would read strangely to me if it was about methods of quality review, depending on the needs and goals of methods of quality review programs. It seemed kind of circular.
That's right. Though we are a government agency that studies government agencies, so who knows? All right. Does anybody oppose adjudicative there? Danny or Matt, when you were writing up the preamble here, is that what you were going for?
Yep, that's right.
Perfect. Then that's what we will go with. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Russell. Very helpful clarification. All right. And then we have awkward. Is this a style point, Russell?
Yes.
Okay, that'll be the committee on style. And then I think we addressed that substantive question in the recommendation, in the new recommendation 20.
Yeah, sure. That's what I meant earlier in my comment. Correct.
So that's deleted. All right. We have now gone through everything. I'm not ready to take a vote yet. Almost. I know people are ready. Before we do, is there anything that anyone else wants to add to the recommendations, to the preamble that we've not talked about, in the seriatim fashion? Just anything that we've missed. I want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak before we vote.
We were going to go back to Robert Gerard's thing in the very beginning.
Oh, that's right. That's right. We're going to go back to Robert Gerard's thing. Robert is not here. And the language he is proposing is in response to Judge Manuel's comment, and he has withdrawn that comment. So, that doesn't mean we have to do it, but my instinct is if he has withdrawn the comment, then we don't need to come up with new language to implement a comment that has been withdrawn.
Well, just as a point of clarification, I think he withdrew it in response to the edits that he saw in the most.
Oh, he withdrew it on the assumption that we were going to accept Robert Gerard's language.
Well, I don't know that we phrased it quite like that, but he elected to change it.
All right. Okay. Well, that's good. Then we'll spend a little bit more time on it. That's okay. All right. Let me review this language again. Everybody review this language.
What language are you talking about?
The last outstanding language. This is in the first paragraph, beginning on 3 through 12, where we cross out and we have new proposed language.
Okay, great. I didn't know which one is Jeff and, oh, there's Gerard. Okay, good. I'll take a look.
Okay. Does anybody want to be heard on this language? Myself in the queue, I guess I am indifferent between the two. I actually kind of like such as denials of reasonable accommodations. So maybe I'm more inclined towards Roberts than the original language, but does anybody want to be heard? Bill Funk.
I'm a little concerned about the proactively identify problems in individual cases. And then we have this list, which would suggest you're actually looking in individual cases to try to find these problems. Especially because it's, I think the idea has been that, if you run across problems in individual cases, you may want to fix them, right? But not that that's what you're actually looking and intending to do is go after every case and try to find if there's a mistake been made. And that's what this seems to say.
So would you say, just so I can, put a point on it, agencies can proactively identify problems and delete in individual cases and on a systemic basis?
Well, I would leave in on a systemic basis because that's really, I think, what the systems are designed to do or are supposed to be designed to do. And just the fact that you can, in individual cases, you find sometimes do something to fix them, is just not the purpose behind them. It's not worth the first paragraph.
Okay. Hi.
So I'd like to speak in favor of this rewrite. I mean, again, I don't know exactly what Judge Manuel, went back and forth, but I think one of the things we've been saying by the very fact that we're saying that this system should sometimes look at cases before they go to appellate review, I think we have been talking about both individual cases and the systemic issues. So I guess I would also say this is important and would want to know from the consultants whether we are doing both, but it seems we're doing both. So they can proactively identify problems in individual cases and on a systemic basis. Because even though, for example, you're not going to tie it back to an individual case, to the person about a misapplied legal standard, but, that might not be a systemic problem, but it might be a big enough problem that it's something you need to care about. So I want to speak in favor of this revised language, which I think is actually quite good.
Elizabeth Pepez.
Thanks. I have to say, I agree with Hai on that. I think that there is an individual aspect to this. So eliminating that and just referencing systemic basis would maybe be too far. If people are concerned about the emphasis on individual cases, maybe we could use language like, proactively identify problems in case resolution or something like that to kind of be more generic. Mm-hmm. My other comment on this was I thought that it got a little bit long and perhaps confusing just in the language, denials of procedure required by law or regulation. And then we have a separate incorrect or inadequate notice to claimants. Could we just say something like procedural violations to kind of encompass all of that and shorten this up a bit?
Yeah, let's see what that looks like.
That's nice.
And then I think Gerald is next in the queue. Gerald?
Sure. I just wanted to comment that I think we actually did intend to talk about both individual cases and systemic basis. I mean, it has to say we'd built a tool that actually helps read or basically reads the decision and looks for certain types of errors, which the decision maker can run before they issue the decision. That is part of the quality assurance process that's in place there. So I think you can
I
develop the
received
tool.
my thing then. I received from my suggestion and leave it in.
Perfect. Thank you, Bill. All right. Okay, now we're looking at it. Would anyone else like to be heard on this? Otherwise, we will accept Robert Gerard's proposed language as amended. All right, hearing none, then let's accept it. And then I'll go back to my initial question. Is there anything else anybody wants to add to either the preamble or the recommendations that we haven't picked up in this seriatim fashion? David Pang.
Hey, so I just felt compelled to echo, I think one of my colleagues was on the line the other day, Judge Sopcheski, and I just wanted to make sure that his point was reflected in this. And that was just, the recommendations rightly discuss the importance of independent qualified decisional independence. But we thought that there would be maybe room in the preamble, maybe in line 12, where it says identifying such problems enables agencies to improve the fairness and perception of fairness, accuracy, interdecisional consistency, et cetera. To just add something recognizing that the agency does have an inherent right to sort of enforce their own policies, that it's that these sort of quality initiatives flow from a natural sense that we want folks to apply our rules correctly, and that goes to fairness, accuracy, etc. And that doesn't necessarily conflict with qualified decisional independence. They sort of work in hand together. Some sort of sentence to reflect that idea.
You have an idea of proposed language?
Haven't. Yeah, maybe. Do I have to come up with it now?
Well, it would be helpful because we're going to vote in a few minutes, and I want to have language on the screen. Recognizing, of course, that if that's something that wants to be added, it can be added to the plenary as well.
I think something just that indicated just what I just said, that identifying, that agency heads or identifying such problems enable agencies to ensure adherence to their own policies, improve the fairness, perception of fairness.
Okay, improve our accuracy. Okay, all right. Does anybody want to be heard on this? Thank you, David. Would anybody like to be heard on this particular point? All right, hearing none, that language will be accepted. Thank you, David.
Thanks.
All right, anybody else? Any other thoughts we want to add? Otherwise, we will take a vote.
I have a quick question about that. In recommendation 3,
Who is speaking? I'm sorry, I don't see it.
I'm sorry, this is Matthew Gluth.
Okay, all right, Matt.
Recommendation
Yes,
number
thank you.
3 somewhat tracks the language in the opening paragraph of the preamble so far as fairness, appearance of fairness, accuracy, et cetera, et cetera. Do we think that letter C follows what David just added, or do we need to add language to the recommendation to account for what we say up top now?
What do you think, David? David Pang?
Yeah, I'm going back to that. What sort of language were you suggesting to add or subtract?
I don't see, this is Matt, I don't see the problem here. I mean, the word law is very broad. It can include internal administrative law, which I don't see the need for any further revisions here. That's my own opinion, though.
That's my opinion as well. I just want to make sure that David agrees. So the point, David, is scroll back down to the recommendation. We added adherence to their own policies in the first paragraph of the preamble. The question is that concept captured by correctly apply the law to the facts of the individual matters? And Matt Wiener's point, which I agree with, is that law includes internal law. So if that is the law of the agency, that is what we mean. But we want to make sure that we are accurately capturing what your point is, David.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, the other point for consistency is we also use that same language from the first paragraph in recommendation 1. So should we add to ensure compliance with agency policies to recommendation 1?
I mean, I guess my thought is we've gone over recommendation 1 in 3 meetings, and this is the language that people landed on. And if we start changing that too much, we can do it in the preamble. We made the point in the preamble. I don't know if we want to do that here, especially with people who've looked at this so many times.
Yeah, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, especially 20 minutes away from our the end time of our meeting. So I'm fine with it.
Okay,
thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you, though. Appreciate that.
No, I agree. I want to make sure everybody feels that they've been heard on this. Hearing no other thoughts, we're ready for a vote. And I learned something fun. There's 2 ways we can do the vote. One can be yays and nays, and the other can be, I can say, unless anybody objects, it'll be approved. So I'm going to try that first. I'm going to say, for purpose of the vote, again, only members of the committees can vote, a committee on adjudication or administration and management. If you are a member of the committee and you want to approve what we have, what is the language? They told me how to do it, and I'm botching it. What was the language they used, Matt?
I mean, what I would do, I don't know all the parliamentary niceties, but I don't think it matters. I would just ask if there's any objection to the.
Perfect. All right. If you are a member of one of the 2 committees, are there any objections? All right. Hearing none, it is approved. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Aaron.
Oof.
Lovely.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to end. Like I said before, the plenary is on December 16th. So put that in your calendar, and there should be an email about how you can RSVP. But assuming that the council approves of our recommendation, this recommendation will then be considered by the full assembly at the plenary on December 16th, as well as whatever recommendations the council so designates. And with that, we are done. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
All right, take care. See everybody on next month.